So my name is Monica, it's Monica Walsh, and I had liver cancer. I was diagnosed with liver cancer on my actual 61st birthday. It's a date that I won't forget for a lot of different reasons. Although that was just a few years ago, I realised my journey started more than 30 years ago. Our mum, God rest her, she passed away from liver cancer at the age of 62. It was very sudden, and even though she was in hospital, an autopsy was performed and it was found that she was a hepatitis carrier. It was passed on at birth, obviously unknowingly. Once tested, the only advice really was that if we were in any medical setting, we should inform doctor, dentist, that sort of thing. But otherwise, for me personally, outwardly, I was fit and healthy, so it was not a problem. So fast forward to when I was just turning 60. I just started to feel, it's very difficult to explain exactly, but I just started to feel something wasn't quite right. Initially, I thought it was menopausal because here I am at 60. I hadn't really, not knowingly, had much problem with the menopause, but again, just something excessively tired. I noticed I was thickening around my middle, and the thing actually that made me go and seek some medical advice was I'd started to, my hair was really shedding. And I suppose in a way it was almost a bit of vanity because my hair was starting to, it was really shedding. So I went to my own GP who, she ran some blood tests, sent me for a scalp biopsy, as it turned, and it really hurt. But the test came back and there were some just slight anomalies. And it was really through her diligence, because she looked through my notes and saw the previous history, although there wasn't an obvious connection at the time with my mum. She referred me to a gastroenterologist locally, which for me was Croydon. After some tests there, it was found my liver was just slightly hardening with a bit of scarring. This came as quite a shock, but I thought, well, okay, this is what it is. So I was referred up to King's, and from when I got there, I went through a series of tests, biopsies, MRI, ultrasounds, and it was almost the final test they found a tiny, tiny tumour sat on my liver. I was then referred to the actual liver unit in, I think it was in the February of the year I had my transplant. And this was all still going around in my head, really. How is this possible? So after the diagnosis of the liver cancer, as I said, on my actual birthday, treatment was discussed. Although the tumour was tiny, it sat right next to the portal vein. So there really weren't many options other than to have a portal vein embolization. I think I got that right. This was performed within a few months. Once the operation had started, it was soon discovered that my liver was just too cirrhotic. My only option now was a transplant. This came as obviously a huge shock to myself, my family, but also to my consultant, because I really didn't have any of the outward signs of somebody who has liver cancer. But it happens, there you go, it happens. From whence the transplant journey started, I was just extremely lucky. I was listed while I was still in hospital. 13 days later, a suitable liver was found for me. The operation went ahead. It was described as clockwork. I'm not sure what that actually means, but the operation only took 4 hours. I was back on the recovery ward within, I think it was 6 hours. I was in hospital altogether for 12 days, discharged. I recovered really well, and here I am 7 years later. And I know it's very difficult when you get the cancer diagnosis, whatever cancer. But for me personally, because of my mum, being told you have liver cancer, it was just devastating looking back on it. But now I try very much to get the message across that if you have a cancer diagnosis, be it liver, be it whichever part, it really doesn't mean the worst outcome. And my advice has always been to try and stay positive. And here I am, 7.5 years later. And the good thing is I am deemed cancer, got to get this right, cancer cured now. I do have an ultrasound annually. Just recently had mine 2 weeks ago, and it's clear still. There is another point I really would like to get across, and that's for if someone is known to be a hepatitis carrier or known to be born with hepatitis or contracts hepatitis, they really should be monitored, because early monitoring or early surveillance, if that's the correct word, may well have, for me personally, may never have led to a transplant, because now there is so much information, there is so much more help, even though there is a huge stigma for hepatitis B, and it remains to this day a stigma. And for me personally, even though I knew where it came from, I didn't really want to tell people. And from talking to other people who have had hepatitis or who have hepatitis, that is still the case. And I really, really feel passionate about dispelling the myth of the stigma, getting help, making a pest of yourself to get help, and being regularly surveyed. If you're unlucky enough to develop liver cancer, I cannot emphasise enough the benefit, the huge benefit of being diagnosed early. If you start to feel something's not quite right with yourself, we know our own bodies best, try and get a medical opinion as soon as possible, because leading a transplant is not necessarily the end result. And if you are diagnosed early, there are so many possibilities, treatments now. It doesn't have to end in a transplant. And with the transplant, of course, comes lots of different emotions, the use of an organ donation, that opens up a whole different world out there.